Okay, so let's talk about Denmark's economy, because honestly, it's a real puzzle. On paper, it looks like it should be a total mess. So today, we're going to figure out how it became one of the most successful in the world.
Right, so let's get straight to the big question. How can a country with absolutely sky-high taxes not only survive, but actually be one of the best places to live? The answer, as you'll see, comes down to some very smart, very deliberate choices.
First up, you've got to picture Denmark. It's a pretty small country, it's cold, and for a huge part of its history, it was basically a poor agricultural nation without a lot of obvious natural advantages.
And unlike its super-rich neighbor Norway, Denmark didn't just hit the jackpot by finding a ton of oil in the North Sea. Nope, they had to forge a completely different path to get wealthy.
On top of all that, they have a massive 25% sales tax, they call it VAT, on pretty much everything you buy. You combine that with some of the highest personal income taxes on the planet, and you'd think, man, that sounds like a recipe for economic disaster. And yet, here's the twist. Against all odds, Denmark is one of the most prosperous and stable economies in the world. Their people have an incredible standard of living, and while other countries are struggling, Denmark just seems to keep humming along. So this is what we call the Danish paradox. It completely flies in the face of conventional economic thinking. So how on earth did they pull it off? Well, the story really gets going after World War II. Denmark came out of the war with its infrastructure in pretty good shape, and it faced a big choice: stay a simple farming economy or modernize. And they decided to invest everything in their single greatest asset, their people. So instead of just staying an isolated farm country, they systematically plugged themselves into the global economy. They joined up with what eventually became the European Union, which opened up huge new markets. And at the exact same time, they started building this really unique social model, expanding their welfare state like crazy. But here's what's so fascinating. The Danes saw these policies as strategic economic moves. This wasn't just about feeling good. Free, lifelong education, that creates a highly skilled, adaptable workforce. Universal healthcare, that's an economic must-have to make sure your workers are healthy and productive. Heck, even investing in all those bike lanes was a practical decision to cut down on traffic, improve public health, and make the whole system more efficient. Okay, so let's get to the real secret sauce of this model, because it's not just that taxes are high, it's who and what they decide to tax, and it's completely different from how many other countries do it. And this, right here, is the crucial difference. You see, while lots of countries pile taxes onto businesses, things like corporate and payroll taxes, Denmark shifts that burden over to personal income and consumption. By keeping corporate taxes low at just 22%, it's way cheaper and easier for companies to hire people, to reinvest their profits, and to grow. And it's worked. They have a booming startup scene, and the World Bank actually ranks Denmark as one of the easiest places in the world to start and run a business. Now, the other half of the secret is this really unique system called flexicurity. And that name is just perfect because it brilliantly balances what businesses need with what workers need in a way that very few other countries have figured out. So here's the genius of it. This system takes the fear out of the equation for everybody. Companies aren't afraid to hire someone new because they know they can adapt if things change. And workers aren't terrified of losing their job because there's this amazing safety net and a whole system ready to retrain them and get them back to work. And the results of all that? One of the highest rates of people working in the entire world. But look, none of this, the high taxes, the huge safety net, the flexicurity, none of it would work without one single powerful, invisible ingredient, something that's incredibly rare in most of the world. Trust. A huge majority of Danes actually trust their government to use their tax money wisely. A Gallup poll found that 88% of them are happy to pay their taxes. Just compare that to only 16% in the US. Danes don't see taxes as just a burden. They see it as a shared investment in the society they all live in. This high-trust society also leads to remarkably low income inequality. I mean, just look at the difference in pay between a CEO and a typical worker. In Denmark, it's around 60-1. In the US, that number is a staggering 290-1. This focus on equality creates a really strong, stable middle class, which is the engine of economic growth. Now, we should be clear that a lot of experts point out that Denmark's small size and its historically similar population have been a huge factor in building this deep social trust. It's just
Well, it's easier to keep everyone on the same page when you're a smaller, more tight-knit society. However, let's not paint a perfect picture here. The Danish model is not some flawless utopia. It's facing some really big challenges that are putting the whole system to the test.
Like a lot of developed countries, Denmark is dealing with an aging population, which puts a ton of pressure on their healthcare and pension systems. And at the same time, increased immigration has started to raise some tough questions about whether the high-tax, high-trust model can be sustained in the long run. These are the kinds of shifts that can really test that social glue. But one of the key strengths of the Danish system is that it's built to adapt. They're not just sitting around waiting for problems to happen. The government is already gradually raising the retirement age, they're digitizing almost all of their public services, and they are pouring money into automation and AI to get ahead of future labor shortages. So, when you add it all up, what's the final verdict? Well, Denmark's economic scorecard is pretty amazing. It gets a perfect 10 for stability, a 9 for its huge per capita GDP, and an 8 for industry with global giants like Maersk and Novo Nordisk. No matter how you slice it, this is an economy that punches way, way above its weight.
And that leaves us with one final big question for the future. The very thing that makes the Danish model work so well, that deep societal trust, could that also be its greatest weakness in an increasingly diverse and globalized world? Is it a superpower, or is it a fragile vulnerability?